Hey guys, it's Ray J, and today we have some pretty awesome news. So AMD have just announced that their new RX480 cards will 1. Be supporting VR and capable of doing so, will 2. Be extremely reasonable, and 3. Coming out quite soon. So as you may have known, recently Nvidia had brought out their new graphics cards which were capable of VR. Now you had the 1080 and a 1070, and let's be honest, those look insane. They are beast mode graphics cards that can max out on like 1080p. You know, they can bring out some serious power. However, they are pretty expensive. But the thing is, today AMD announced in Taiwan that they will be releasing 2 variants of their graphics cards, and they are calling it the RX480. Now, one of them is going to be 4GB, and then they're going to be making an 8GB version too. Now, this is all that we know so far. One thing is though that this graphics card is extremely cheap, and I don't say that lightly. So in the UK, it's £160 for the 4GB version. Now this supports VR, and VR is very process heavy. It does need a good graphics card to run, and it also will be able to max out on certain games. So in terms of performance on the RX480, it's meant to be the equivalent of around the GTX 980 by Nvidia and the R9 390 from AMD. Now that's a pretty good graphics card, if I'm honest, and that is running on Doom at 60 frames per second at a resolution of 2560 x 1440, and that is at Ultra as well, so that's pretty good performance. So I'm sure you can imagine having this at 1080p resolution, this card will do really well. And I mean, a lot of people and a lot of gamers that I know, myself, use 1080p monitors, and this card will do great in terms of FPS. So that's kind of an example of what the card is actually going to be like. It is obviously meant to be competing with the 1070, and it does reach quite close proximity in terms of performance. However, in reality at the moment, it looks like it's going to be very similar to the GTX 980 and the R9 390. When we see benchmarks, it's going to be fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to these benchmarks being released. Now, I'm not sure what the 8GB version will cost. I'm going to estimate here in the UK it's going to be about £240. It could be less, it could be more, but that's my estimate. Now, in the US, the 480 is $200. Again, super cheap for what it can do. Now, I'm a long-term AMD fan. I got to be honest. I'm not a complete fanboy, but I absolutely love what they do. I currently run an AMD Radeon 7950, and it's a great card, although it is very hot, and the particular model I have is extremely noisy. Bad points there. But apart from that, the graphics card is really good. And I also own the AMD FX 8350, and that is a great processor for what I do, especially when it comes to like rendering and video editing and all of that. It's perfect. And gaming, you know, I can't fault it. And yes, I'm going to be honest, the Nvidia cards do look fantastic, especially the 1080. But they can't compare on this price level. Now, I don't know how well these are going to perform in comparison, but seriously, for that price point, it really is bringing VR to the masses. So the AMD card is based on the Polaris architecture, and we have been waiting, especially if you're in the graphics card game and you're interested in what's coming out, we've been waiting quite a while for these new cards to come, and they are like the 14 nanometer technology ones. And honestly, these improvements are like so much more significant compared to the older generation of graphics cards. So what's really cool about the Polaris architecture is it's going to have a new GPU macro architecture featuring 4th generation graphics core, and it's also going to have HDMI 2.0A, DisplayPort 1.3, and then 4K H.265 encode/decode. It's going to be optimized for implementation of FinFET, and it's going to be a really great ratio of performance/wattage on the Radeon GPUs. So in terms of other hardware or other companies being involved with this release, we haven't heard anything else yet, as they only released the reference card just today. So I'm sure in a few months you can expect Asus, as well as MSI and other manufacturers, to make their own variants of these cards with better performance and better cooling. But in terms of the reference card itself, it looks great. It's capable of doing over 5 teraflops in computing power, and you know, that's quite a good amount of teraflops going on there, especially seeing that the Nvidia's variant, the 1070, can do over 6 teraflops. Now the 1080 can do quite a lot more than that, it's 9 teraflops. However, if you were to have 2 AMD RX480s, that would equate to about 10 teraflops, possibly a little bit more. And it is being said that if you were to use 2 of these cards, you could actually beat performance of the 1080. Again, I'm not so sure how reliable this actually is, but it does seem fairly legit. And again, it's going to be cheaper than the 1080. Like, these cards are not going to be very expensive. That is the main selling point of this AMD architecture at the moment. They are going to be really cheap cards for what they can do. I mean, AMD have always kind of been known to doing this. Yeah, bear in mind they can be noisy and hot, and maybe their software isn't so great. By the way, they have actually improved their software as of recent years. But honestly, for what you're getting with this card, the price point is fantastic. Let's be honest, Nvidia cards have always been known to be a lot more refined, a lot more stable, and in terms of noise, pretty quiet. In terms of heat, very low temps, and also their software has been known to be a lot better. And I'm happy to admit that. I know that a lot of Nvidia cards are actually superior to AMD cards, but again, it's about price point, what you're willing to spend, and if you can, you know, cope with those kind of heat issues, or if you're happy that it's going to be a little bit noisier in your machine. So the card will have 36 compute units. The mem size is 4/8 GB of GDDR5. It will have a memory bandwidth of 256 GB per second. The mem bitrate will be 256 bits. The power will only be 150 watts. It will have VR Premium. It will also have FreeSync. On the back, it will have one HDMI 2.0 port, and then it will have 3 other different display ports. I think the card looks really nice as well. It's all black, and it's got like kind of little dots, and it also has one fan. And I don't know, there's something nice and minimalistic about this design. Personally, I just think graphics cards look awesome. I don't know if you guys do. If you do, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think and what your favourite designs are for graphics cards. But yeah, I don't know, whenever I see one, I think they look pretty boss. And this particular card doesn't let it down for me. I really think it's going to honestly make VR available to like most people, especially as VR is coming very soon. It's becoming more mainstream, and again, I think these kind of cards are going to help push VR even further, you know, and keep that momentum going for VR. I think it will help the economy of the whole VR kind of situation. Maybe prices will lower down because of these cards becoming more accessible for the everyday user. Not sure, but I'm really looking forward to where this is going to go. So AMD created their own benchmark, and they showcased it at their event. And using 2 of these cards, they actually managed to get a few more frames per second out of it compared to the 1080. So for 2 Radeon RX480s, you got a frames per second rate of 62.5. And then on the 1080 by Nvidia, you got 58.7. And now, as you can see, that is a little bit of an increase. I mean, they're very similar in those terms. However, look at the price difference. We've got less than $500 for the RX480, and then we've got $700 for the 1080 by Nvidia. Where's your money at? Now, obviously, these kind of benchmarks performances are going to differ on different games, you know, and if you prefer Nvidia or AMD, then you're likely to go with who you usually side with. But this really does open up more options for the everyday user, and in terms of how close these performance levels are for the price, I really think you are hard to beat with this card. Honestly, like, I think it's up to what the user really prefers, if you like AMD or if you like Nvidia, and if you are willing to save some money on your card. I know who I'm going to be backing in terms of the graphics card race at the moment with the new architecture. You know, I just love what they do. I like to support AMD. I mean, they haven't done always so great, but they really do deserve it for this kind of price point and for giving all of this great power. They deserve an applause. Well done. Honestly, AMD, this is great news. Thank you for making it a really reasonable price. Again, I'm not a hardcore fanboy, but I do really like AMD, and I just love tech news. So thank you for watching this video, guys. This has been a Ray J, and let me know what you think of the new cards. Again, even if you're like Nvidia more, whatever, just like let me know down in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you so much for watching. See you later. You heard me right. $200? £160? What is this madness?